On this episode, why dips happen. Hey everybody, this is the Quarter Show, and I've been talking a little bit about why dips happen, which means why things drop out, why people crash, and we got a nice snowy background here. I don't know if you can see this or not. We got
huge snowflakes.
Snow
in Seattle
right now. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, it's amazing. You can be great and then you can crash, you know, and a lot of people don't realize what's happening. So, you know, top salespeople, I've come in contact with top entrepreneurs and people selling, anybody who's selling, anybody dealing with this. And like 1 week or 1 month or whatever, they're just crushing it and they're killing it. And next thing you know, they're like, I just can't figure it out. I don't know what happened. Nothing changed. I'm doing the same stuff. And there's the lie, you know, there's the thing that they don't realize is that it's always something that changed. It's always things that changed. It's always things that they dropped out and they're just not quite spotting it. And so over the years, I've made a habit of actually writing down. We'll have huge weeks or we'll have huge months, whatever, and I'll interview salespeople. I'll interview Ben or Devin or myself or whoever, and I'll analyze what happened for that week. And I start bullet pointing it out. Like I write down the things that helped you get there, whether it was like big deals or it was this or these phone calls or whatever. And I'll start codifying it. And it's interesting because when people crash, you can pull it out and say, here's exactly the framework of what happened and how to do it again. And if you ever run into a dip, understand that it's literally things that you've dropped out. So you don't make the phone calls the way you did, or you weren't saying the things you weren't, or you weren't putting your fiber into it, all your emotion in the thing, or you weren't doing this, or you weren't doing that. You literally change something and things drop out. And the closest and easiest analogy I can think of is you know, one of my first jobs when I was a kid was working at a startup golf course. And I golfed every day. I was very close with a head pro, Canadian PGA professional, and I learned a lot from him. And it was interesting because with golf, it was like golf's this art and science. You know, there's an exact way to do it. And you know, if you're not a golfer, or if you are a golfer, you know that if you pull out a 9-iron, your ball positioning needs to be an exact spot on the ground, comparative to where your feet are standing, comparative to the club you're holding. And your hands need to be an exact way with a certain, you know, the V point of your, you know, right shoulder and all these different things. Like there's exact things for golf, otherwise you hook it or you slice it or whatever. Like it's an exact thing that you need to do. And I used to play with golfers, and I played pretty well, and then I played with golfers and people who were decent golfers as well, and then they drop things out and they flip out and be like, I can't believe it, you know, nothing changed. This is what I do every time. And from a distance, you're looking at this player and you can, plain as day, see the thing that they changed. Heaven forbid you tell them what it is.
Well, that's what happened with me the other week. So like a couple weeks ago, I had a little rough week and sat down with Robert, and he gave me 3 pieces of feedback. And you know, I was pretty stressful because it's important that I produce, and I was pretty stressful, and so I vented to him for a moment and basically said, no, you're wrong on all 3 points. None of the 3 things that you've said to me are correct at all.
Wrong.
But so we talked at length after that, and there were fine points, and like you say, with a pro golfer, a fine point is going to throw off the whole game.
Oh my gosh.
You know, a Major League Baseball player, the way they hold the bat, where they're standing in the batter's box, every little fine point. So, you know, his comments, well, I'm listening to your voicemail sound like this, and you know, I'm not sure you're doing the volume you need, and blah, 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 and he gave these specific points. And because the fine tuning is so precise, there was definitely correctness on all the feedback. And you know, the very next week, I was producing well again, decently again, and still am. So sometimes it's that exterior viewpoint, and then having someone that can view it, can correct it, and can communicate it. Like you say, God forbid you say something about it, but you have to be able to take that.
Yeah, you really do, because that's why coaches exist, right? That's why personal trainers exist. That's why there's sports coaches and different things like that, because there has to be somebody who can spot it and bring it to the table and say, hey, I mean, look, I played hockey growing up and I was a goalie, and they would video record my games and my practices and stuff like that. And like, if the puck would go through your legs or something, they'd be like, well, it's your stance and blah, blah. You got a huge, they used to call it 5-0, huge open space in your leg. I was like, impossible. There's no way. Pull up the tape. They pull up the tape. I look and I'm like,
Grand Canyon.
Damn it. So you can't always see it. You can't always see it yourself, but it's very important to write down what worked and the things that worked. When you have a great week, you need to observe those things and write those different things down. You got to keep those different things in from week to week. And I would encourage, when you write those things down, that you read it at the beginning of either every day or the beginning of every week, because you want these things like locked in, because there's an exact art and science to selling well. And if you keep those steps in, you're not going to run into those dips. You're not going to run into this sort of peaks and valley thing that happen. It's the number one thing that I notice when people crash and they don't do well. The number one thing is that they dropped out what previously worked. They dropped out the things that they should have been doing. By dropped out, I mean they changed, right? They're not doing it, or they changed something. For whatever reason, people just do this.
But it is important for whatever reason, because with mine, I mean, whatever, there were some subtle factors, but the regular one that I notice when my own statistics go down is that it used to be a little bit of the hubris that we've talked about in different things, where you're like, oh, I'm doing so good. Oh, I'm doing so good, right?
Yeah.
And so you cease to do these things, or you become so hyper focused into a couple of deals to get done, and you're going to get them done, that you're dropping out all of your trench work from before. You're not making the phone calls, you're not sending the emails, you're not developing new things. So you can get to a point, and a big part of the game in really growing as a salesperson is getting this under control, developing new prospects at all times, and closing the volume that comes in. Because the more you develop, the more you're going to be like caught up in, oh my God, I have to get a proposal over to Fred and Sally and Jim, and I got to get these proposals over now, and then I have to call and sign them up and get them, make sure they're signed off, and get them over to production and make all the notes. And at the same exact time, you have to continue to create your new life in the future, because if you don't, so it's this weird control thing, because you start to succeed, and your office starts to blow up with things that have to be done because you're bringing revenue in like mad.
And then you get distracted by it, and then you drop out what got you there.
Right, and then you're like, I got to take a breath, and so you don't work as hard on Friday.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, there's a thing called Pareto's Law. It's the 80-20 rule. And I will tell you, my viewpoint on that, by the way, is that 80% of your time should be spent on trench work. And by trench work, we did an earlier episode on that, but that's like doing the emails, doing the phone calls, doing the meetings, doing the thing, digging this stuff up to become a sales cycle that's now asking and closing or selling, or that's now on your lineup of stuff that like you can sell for that week. 80% of your time should be spent on trench work, 20% should be done on selling. Selling is actually pretty easy. If you sell and you do the trench work, you do the work that leads to prospects that show up on your lineup, and then you go work on the sales and the closing and all that kind of stuff. 20% should be spent on the selling, frankly, and you work your lineup and different things like that. 80% on trench work, and if you do that, your pipe will always be full, your lineup will always be full, you have tons of things coming in, you always have abundance, you never run into scarcity. It's very, very important. And what I notice is that people do funny things. They reverse the Pareto's Law, right? Like they work 80% on sales, 20% on trench work.
I've done it.
And I always say internally too, using the 80-20, it's like salespeople should spend 80% on re-signs and 20% on new business that's coming in. But most people spend 80% on new business and 20% on re-signs. And by re-signs, I mean taking care of your client list, taking care of your power base of clients, servicing them and re-signing them and upgrading and taking care of them. And oddly, it seems like everybody, or a lot of people do it backwards, but the people who don't do it backwards just crush it. They have those ratios in, and they end up crushing it. Very important. Re-signs, your client is so important. Don't lose clients. Service your customers. Take care of them. Don't lose them. They're very important. Keeping clients is one of the most efficient ways to drive revenues, taking care of the clients you already have, as opposed to scraping and trying to, go get new ones and things like that. Definitely go get new ones. I'm not saying don't do, but don't lose clients. So anyway, but that's the key thing that I want to go over, which is just like, if you're running into problems and you take a dip, understand that there's things that you changed, and you need to start documenting. When you have huge weeks and you go crush it, document it. write it down in bullet point. Like, what did you do? What happened here? Like, even what were the deal sizes? Who were you selling? Who were you selling? What was the title of the people you're selling? What kinds of companies were you selling? What was the industry they're in? What are they doing? All the different things. How many phone calls did you make? How many proposals did you get out? What was the total value of proposals that you got out? Right? Go through and dissect it and sort of like paint the picture, to fill it in and populate the data, so you know like what actually happened this week, right? Or whatever, this month, or if you really crush it, look at it. Because most people don't take the time to do that, but if you do, you can save it, you can put it on a Google Doc, you can save that Google Doc, and you can pull it up in the future. And the truth is, you should save that, read it every day or every week at the beginning, so you keep these things in, right? Because that's what it takes to be a great pro golfer or anything, right? They don't drop out practice, they do the practice of the things that worked every single day, And if you want to learn more about what works, then you just should buy this book. We wrote it up.
It's all there.
Just kidding. Not pitching you there. Buy it if you like. Anyway, hope that helps. With more coming at you soon. Make sure to subscribe to the channel right there if you haven't already, and hit like and go ahead and share it on social and things like that. Okay. Thanks.